I don't know how many of you are aware, but the SDGs and the 2030 agenda was not supposed to succeed.
Okay.
It wasn't supposed to happen. And the reason was quite simple, is that business as usual and the status quo had become so embedded, and so many people are invested in the way in which business had been done for 70-odd years at the United Nations, that nobody really wanted to do anything fundamentally different. Which is why I have such great respect for this organization and for this title that they've picked, the transformative imperative. I actually don't know whether everybody truly appreciates just how significantly important that is. When we were undertaking the work, and it took us 3 years, you can imagine, of negotiations, with 193 countries and over 250,000 civil society organizations. Did I say 50,000? 2,500 civil society organizations. When we were doing that work, one of the things that we realized is that there was a desperate need for a shift in the way in which we were doing business as a multilateral system globally, but also as how we related and how we aspired. Universality and transformation were the key calling cards for the SDGs. Universality and transformation. Until then, the United Nations was seen as part of the global ODA system. Global problems of biodiversity, climate change, environment, hunger, and so on were seen as problems of the global South. The global South was seen as the needy, the global North as the great provider. And we had to bring an end to that for reasons that are now obvious to everybody, about climate change, about biodiversity, loss, about everything that we now consider to be part of the SDG package. And because everyone is embedded in the status quo, including all of you, and because governments are embedded in the status quo, and because civil society is embedded in the status quo, surprisingly enough, because civil society, for most part, tends to be funded either by big pharma or by big industry or by governments who are already embedded in the status quo. Therefore, change becomes an incredibly difficult thing. Incredibly difficult. And when you talk about the transformative imperative, what you're first of all doing is signaling to everybody that what we want is a radical shift and change in how we do business. Because clearly, business as usual has not been delivering the right outcomes, or else we wouldn't be here. Science is marginalized. Science. I was in a session today, I think it was Professor from Rwanda who reminded us of the contribution of science to the American experience, the superpower that we see today. 84% of that contribution came from science and technology, I think you said. Phenomenal. And yet you have countries today that have no budgetary allocations to science and technology. It's a phenomenal thing when you think about it. So we need to identify and mobilize progressive elements, as we did when we were doing the SDGs. We needed to identify and promote progressive ideas that attracted the progressive elements to join those of us who wanted a transformative framework for global development. We needed to identify and promote progressive partners, and we needed all of us to galvanize all our energies and to recognize that we were going to be under siege at all times. So here we are trying to undertake a transformative imperative trying to restructure how science is seen either by governments or by other entities who are the gatekeepers of global resources. And we need to ask ourselves, what are the transformative inputs that we're going to have to put in place to get this done? So I'll quickly give you a sense of Africa. Here we are, a continent with 1.3 billion, 18% of the global population, yet we have 60% of the arable land in the world, and over 500 million Africans go hungry every day, for one reason or another. Why? Because of the status quo. We have a continent with 30% of global minerals. We have been part of all the revolutions, industrial and otherwise, that have taken place on this planet. And we're now on the 4th industrial revolution. And within 200 miles of Kigali, give or take, is all the minerals that the world needs for driving the 4th industrial revolution. This is hugely significant. Is Africa going to be missed out of the 4th industrial revolution like it was missed out of the first 3? This is the question for science and scientists and for policymakers who are enabling science to drive development on our continent. It's a huge challenge. When we talk about the transformative imperative, we need to ask ourselves exactly what are we talking about and where is it going to take us. So for me, the SDGs have laid the groundwork. The framework is in place. It's a universal framework, north, south, east, west. All of us are in it together. There is poverty in all our countries, not just on this continent. There is hunger in, if not all, virtually most of the world's countries. It might be very small, it might be very large, but it's there. And these are challenges for all countries that they need to resolve. And I believe that if we're going to really embrace the transformative imperative, we must ask ourselves what it is that we need to do differently, how we need to upend the system of science, how we need to recognize the limits of governments. African governments, pretty much all they do is divvy up the budget and the money of the country. That's all they do. There's no other resources for anything else. So when you see the politics of our countries in Africa, there are politics about budgets and money. And it's about money that's available to the country, which is usually minuscule. So the question is, are we barking up the wrong tree when we keep saying we want to see African governments driving science and they have to fund science? The target was 1% in 2007 for all African countries, 1% of their budget. Till today, no African country, not even South Africa and Egypt, which are the most progressive in this regard, has reached 1% of their budget on science. The African average is 0.4. 0.04 today. So we have a challenge, and I don't want to go on any longer, but we need to understand, and I think we need to appreciate, that unless we recognize that the scientists of this continent, and in fact the scientists of the world, have to begin to work together so that the north-south divide is broken, so that cooperation between science in the north and science in the south becomes seamless, just like science in the north is seamless between themselves and among themselves. That's why Nobel laureates tend to come from different countries. It's because they share science. We need to go to a point where we are sharing science and sharing research and development with Africans. It is the responsibility of scientists in the north to see to it that they too become partners with African scientists in ways in which we can transform our reality on this continent.